Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. It's Comedians on People, Technology, and Drugs. Yes, I'm your co-host, Sam Joseph, and it's my able co-host, Joe Vaughan, and we're very lucky to have today Junior. We've been trying to get him on the show for a while. Finally, the stars have aligned. Junior, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, as you said, it's been a bit of a headache trying to line everything up, but we're here now, finally here.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, and I think just in the warm before the show, you were starting to tell us about your style of comedy. You know, you've been going for a year or so. But yeah, maybe for some of the listeners who aren't familiar with your work, yeah, how would you describe what your angle is?
So yeah, I think I'd always say it's quite observational, but I try and pick themes and try and poke very silly jokes. Definitely at the beginning of a set, anyway, very silly jokes in a certain area. And then try and bring out a broader observational kind of take on it. So I don't know, there may be an area I talk about buying a house or driving and stuff like that, and there'll be very silly little jokes in there. Clearly, you can tell I'm not being very serious. And then as I slowly go on, I may turn into talking more about relationships, and then I start to poke more observational jokes in there. So it kind of starts with quick, I wouldn't say one-liners, but kind of quick witty jokes, and then I kind of go into a broader spectrum of talking about a specific area and just start kind of building jokes around there. So, usually it works, gets people whipped up. Oh, that was funny. And then you kind of give yourself some time to talk a bit more, if that bit didn't work, then you might be in trouble already. So, yeah.
So when you say kind of one-liners, is that in the sort of, sort of Jimmy Carr, Gary Delaney style, or is it kind of, do they more kind of building each other, or how is it kind of?
Yeah, so a bit of both, to be honest. I say a bit more like Lee Mack, Gary Delaney. Again, it'd be a one-liner, but they all build right next to each other. So I wouldn't just do a joke about, I don't know, learning how to drive it and switch it to, buying a fridge or something like that. They would kind of be in the same area of what I'm talking about, and then move on to a different subject matter and kind of build on the jokes like that, be it you run university or whatever like that. There's always a specific theme that I try and work on and then carry the jokes going on there. So it's something you do have to be careful, because sometimes you don't want to say anything that's too similar to, what you just said before. But that's usually how I try and build them up and then jump onto something a bit more expensive.
On the one-liners, I think I heard you've got to write hundreds of them or thousands of them to try and get down to ones that are kind of presentable. Is that how it works for you? Do you write kind of tons more than you actually end up delivering and think, that's just not happening, that one, that's a shocker, I'll try that one. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've got a list. So like I said, I'll pick a topic and I will just write jokes, one-liner jokes in there. Some you tweak because you think, I can use bits from that one and stick it into that joke. And some I use, and sometimes you get your reaction, you get away, and I'm like, that's not what I want. That's not the reaction I'm after. And then you quickly cross those out, because they're just not going to work. So yeah, I do write quite a lot in this specific area. And sometimes, well, for me personally, it's when I'm about to go to sleep. That's all of a sudden my brain starts chugging and chugging. I think, oh God, I'm about to get 6 hours of sleep. It's been whittled down to about 3 now, because I'm just thinking about new joke. And I don't know about you guys, it never stays in my head for long. I always have to go and write it down. Otherwise, it's literally next morning I'd forget it. So I literally have to write them down. And I've got like a notepad, but on my phone, you like tabs of notes. It's just like a line of joke. Sometimes it's just an area, and then you go around and you build it up, in the way you think it's going to work. But I try and do that. And so I've been trying to cut that out a bit more, because it's bad for your sleep, really bad for your sleep pattern. Because sometimes I sit down and have a session and it just doesn't really come. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll move on to something else just before I go to bed. I'm like, all right, that would work.
No, I'm all, the kind of the one-liner is the kind of high wire act, isn't it? You're kind of like, it's got to land, and then
it does.
It has to. Do you ever had any experiences where it's kind of like the first one hasn't gone, and then you're thinking like, shit, oh no, what I'm going to do, and then you've had to kind of pull it back? Or does it how's it been for you? Like, people always, early on, people always worried about dying on their arse, right?
Yeah, I say I haven't had an issue with the first one or like the first two, because I think naturally you want that to be one of the strongest you've got in there. So it should be kind of universal, because I've there's some that I've done here in the UK, right? And jokes I've done in London, right? And I can tell, right, that's going to work off the bat. But sometimes we get, it was July the 4th. So I did a gig on July the 4th, and there was loads of Americans out in the pubs in the UK. So people trying the American bits. And I realized, well, some of these, or at least one or two of these jokes may not have the same effect because the audience just may not get them. And it's just things thinking about that. I try and make sure, okay, at least most of my material, if not all, should be relatable to, you know, people from all different walks of life. And so I try and make sure at least the first 2 or 3, you go right off the bat, doesn't matter where you could live in, I don't know, somewhere in Canada, an igloo in Canada, or in the Mongolian steppes, you should be able to know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? And then I think after that, then I kind of get into a bit of a groove. But yeah, sometimes you drop one and, you know, people don't get it. Or sometimes it's that's one thing I worked out. It was the delivery. There's one joke that I tell, so it's a silly Prince Andrew joke, right? And in my head, the punchline is around his name. But what I found out was people were laughing before that because the first section of the joke was funny by itself. And I when I first told the joke, I was trying to, it was kind of like, everybody, shut up, I haven't finished telling you the punchline. But that managed to work. And I was like, okay, now I have to adapt this joke and make sure that, you know, the way I deliver it has the impact of bringing in the, you know, the first build up and then the second punchline. So things like that, you slowly work out, especially if one-liners that sometimes can just be as good as the delivery as the joke itself.
Yeah. What's, you know, would you say your material, do you ever go kind of like on the edge of things? Do you know what I mean? On the edge of kind of offensive kind of levels, or I mean, how are you doing with that?
Yeah, I say I'm not. I try not to be too offensive, but some of the jokes in there, you definitely count as dark comedy. I don't know. There's a few in there about, you know, grandma and stuff like that, which I find always interesting because people tend to go, ooh, but I'm like, it's not your grandma. It's mine. She's been dead ages ago, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. No grandma's got harmed telling this joke. It's kind of that. But some people always do, ooh, and sometimes it takes 1 or 2, and then everyone's kind of like, ooh, yeah, should have said that. So that does happen. But I wouldn't say there's anything that's too risque. I don't have anything in there that I try and do it like this. The jokes that I would say to my friends or around people, those are jokes I kind of tell, right? And it's not in my nature to be, you know, talking about, well, barring like the Prince Andrew thing, like anything like, you know, rapists and stuff like that. That naturally, those aren't the jokes I tell, and so I don't think they'd come off in my gigs as well. Anyway, so I leave that to other people. But some that definitely cross the line, like I mentioned there. Yeah, I tell those jokes, and sometimes you get people who like that, people who don't, and it's, you know, horses for courses. It's
such a weird thing, isn't it? Because, like, you know, some people, you know, just go out to try and be deliberately offensive, and it's just horribly butt clenching. You know what I mean? And then if it's not, you know what I mean, if you're just trying to be offensive, and yet some people just manage to pull it off and have made stellar careers out of doing it.
Yeah. I'm always in awe of people who are incredibly offensive, but somehow it is incredibly fun. And I think that just comes down to the experience of the person telling the joke, really.
Handle it, yeah. I mean, do you ever get offended by jokes? Do you ever think, oh, you know, they've crossed the line, gone too far? Do you think there's kind of, you know, limits to it? Are you one of those kind of, it's fair game, it's a joke, it might be a shit joke, but it's a joke? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm more down the line of it's fair game, right? I think if you're going into a comedy store, right, you should be expecting, I mean, it doesn't explicitly say on the ticket, but you should be expecting some level of raunchiness, some level of, you know, people going across the line, because in a society with something as subjective as jokes, everyone's got a different line, right? And there are some things that people really take umbrage with and some people don't, you know. I tend not to, because I try and see the funny in everything. I think where I'm a bit like, ooh, is if they try and it wasn't funny. That's when I'm a bit like, oh, that didn't work. As opposed to, you shouldn't really be talking about that topic kind of thing. Because as you said, there are some comedians who really have the gift of telling really, really edgy jokes, and they get away with it and people find it funny. I usually find it funny. But I mean, I'd rather go to that than go somewhere and, you know, have a bunch of very sanitized jokes that just don't work. You know, I think there's definitely a balance. I mean, I'm not here, you know, advocating all manner of weird jokes. I wouldn't say that, but you do get people who know how to cross the line. If they do it successfully, then, you know, who am I to say anything? What I do find interesting, well, I wouldn't. There was one time where I thought, hang on, it was one comedian, I won't say his name, but he had a real fascination with telling jokes to denigrate women and people of different groups and stuff like that. And so that sitting there, it was really uncomfortable listening to his jokes because he was losing the audience. So, you know, some comedians find it funny. Some of the jokes I even found funny, but he was it's like he was trying to get them to go against him. And I just thought there's no need for that. Do you know what I mean? If you're a funny guy, you can do the jokes you want, but when you're trying to, you know, denigrate, he was really punching down. And I thought there's no need for that kind of thing. So
yes, that's almost like the crime is just not being very good at it. Do you know what I mean? To handle that sort of material, you know, you have to have I guess like a fairly rock solid sort of personality. You're not trying to, you know, like you say, you're not trying to put yourself against the audience and be hated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because
that's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because I guess you've got people that will try and do that, but that's not kind of a solid personality type, I would guess. You know what I mean? You just want to be attracting vitriol onto yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It really made no sense. I've never seen anything quite like it. Because he really was funny. But yeah, he just had some stuff he wanted to get off his chest, and there were a couple of women in the audience, and he just thought they're fair game. But yeah, barring that, I think, like you said, if you're really good and, you know, you've got the nuanced way of telling it, then by all means go ahead and do what you need to do. You know.
How's your set these days, Sam? Are you bringing any kind of material in there which is on the edge?
I'd like to think so, but no. I mean, the edge that I'm going on is the edge of, like, you know, is it can you possibly make this funny? In as much as, like, as I mentioned, you know, I'm doing a Vipassana retreat, so I just did a set last night all about silent meditation, which, you know, that's the kind of the edge that I'm moving backwards and forwards across. But I was out last night, and exactly the same topic we're talking about there came up, because there was one comedian who was up who was definitely doing a little bit of punching down. I've seen a couple of times towards, I think, particularly women, and it's just, you know, like some of the things that this guy last night was saying was funny, but, you know, he definitely lost the room. I mean, I don't know. And I've been another one. We had Wes Defoe on the show recently, and we're talking about.
Right, Wes.
Yeah. And but we, in the context of talking about, you know, censorship and like what's the limits of comedy, we were talking about a situation where someone had been doing some punching down, and some women walked out, and it's just, you know, it's kind of like what you were saying, Joe. It's the, you know, is the crime not being good enough at it? Because there is this funny sort of thing when, you know, that, oh, he didn't, you know, you have with your mates sometimes, and you say something and it wouldn't be for public consumption, and almost like the outrageousness of having said the thing that you say makes it funny. But then if you're doing it in a context where, I don't know, the backdrop that we have with, you know, society, different groups, you know, like really having a tough time, you know, for someone to get up on stage and punch down, it's kind of, I don't know, surely there's funnier things to talk about.
Yeah, I suppose if you think back to remember some of Richard Pryor stuff, right, where he's like talking about, you know, his mum being a prostitute and his addictions, and said it's, you know what I mean, and it's like, and people are rolling around like talking about it, right? If someone else done that, it would just be like, imagine it's just like stony silence, just like it's just pure tumbleweed, like somebody having a meltdown on stage. I suppose it is that ability to have that natural kind of comic gift, timing, whatever, storytelling ability. And I guess maybe it's honesty. Maybe he never felt sorry for himself. I don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe he thought it was funny. I don't know. It's a funny one.
Yeah. I think probably two sides to that. I mean, Richard Pryor, obviously great storyteller, great comedian, but also I think because he's taking you on a journey through his experience, right? So again, you're living it through his lens. So you're not seeing it as, oh my God, he's attacking prostitutes or his mum or this. Like, quite a lot of the American comedians are able to kind of lynch on their experiences growing up, a hard life, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. But they make it interesting. And so you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm here listening about prostitutes being denigrated or whatever the story is. You're kind of like, this is interesting. I can see the funny in it because he can see the funny in it. And I think that is the nuance, as opposed to go, yeah, X, Y, this about women, this about, I think you go along with their journey because they're okay talking about it.
Yeah, I was watching, like as I say, I've been off for a bit. So I was watching quite a fair bit of kind of Netflix comedy sets. And I was watching a lot of Dave Chappelle,
Yeah.
quite a lot of Bill Barr. And those are people that I kind of heard of, and like people saying, that Dave Chappelle's like the greatest of all time and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, right, let's sit down for a few sessions with Dave Chappelle. And I mean, the way he speaks, I mean, just incredible the way he speaks. And he did that sort of like a post George Floyd kind of monologue thing. I don't know if I mean, he speaks amazing.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, really, I mean, incredibly powerful. I don't know about his jokes that much. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I was like, and but Bill Barr, maybe that's obviously a personal thing, right? But do you think there's a difference between, say, like the way that the Brits approach joke telling and the way the Americans do? Do you think there's a massive difference in it? Do you think it's just a cultural thing? Do you know what I mean?
I think there are different dynamics and different ways of looking at it. I think what I'd say, going back and watching the Netflix series Dave Chappelle's probably doesn't do him justice, because the only reason why I'd say that is because he's at a point now where he kind of does a lot more storytelling and social justice issues, as opposed to when he was writing or doing comedy sets in the early 90s and noughties, where he's just doing jokes and they're hilarious. Now he's got more of an agenda with jokes around it, as opposed to jokes with an agenda, if you know what I mean. Right. So I think as I can watch him and go, do you know what? I've seen what he's done before. There's funny in this. It's not his best stuff, in my opinion. His best stuff was years ago, but I see what he's doing here, and there's still crazy jokes in there. So I can understand probably watching those not having that kind of outlook as well.
Maybe I've got to rewind and try and find some of the older material where he's just been maybe a bit wackier than.
Yeah, a lot more wacky. Yeah, I there's probably stuff on YouTube you can definitely have a look. That you'll see stuff. And I think to the second point is I do think it's slightly different. I think one thing with Dave Chappelle is the way he speaks. Sometimes what he's saying isn't even funny to me, but it's just the way he delivers it and the way he says, like the way he says a word. I don't know if it's through the accent or whatnot, and I'm on the floor. You know what I mean? And I think some of the Americans have that, or just the way they say bitch or blah, 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 stuff like that. It's just funny. Whereas I don't think we have that. I think our jokes are a bit more nuanced. I don't want to say highbrow or anything, but there's a lot more complexity within our jokes compared to the American scene, which I think they can get away with buzzwords and certain taglines and stuff like that. And it's just hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I've been like away, like, on sort of trips abroad, and there's been a load of Americans there, right? And the guy could be talking about going and taking his trousers to the dry cleaners, right?
Yeah.
But, a Brit would go, yeah, probably even mention it, but it's like, hey man, I went to this dry cleaner, man. He's got the best machines in the world, man. I took my trousers. That, I mean, it's like,
yeah.
Fucking trousers to the dry cleaners or something like that. But everything's like really like over the top. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. I mean, my mum is American, and she said that she felt she just got overwhelmed there, just like the size of the personalities, the size of the, people getting together. It was just incredible, the energy. So yeah, maybe it's that.
Yeah. I definitely think the energy they bring to certain jokes, it does transform it. Quite a bit different to, I think, if we went out there and did jokes. I think we're more depending on our words and the play of words and how you kind of structure them. I think they can literally, like you said, talk about such a mundane topic, but because of their actions and the way they say certain words, you're just like, this is a new type of way to tell a joke. Well, not new, but you know what I mean.
You're a big fan of the American stuff, Sam?
I think I am, like despite being British, I think I'm culturally American. I'm a huge fan of Patton Oswald's. There's quite a lot of American comics. Tom Papa. I mean, I like there's so many of their albums just on Spotify. I can't get enough of it. Really, absolutely love them.
I have to go down that rabbit hole. I mean, Robin Williams, I used to love listening to him. I could just imagine being on a night out with him, and then just, just imagine it. It's just imagine him.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, I think I take a lot of my inspiration. I mean, you were asking about my recent sets. The people say of mine, like, it's kind of improv-y. I'm, that thing like you're describing, the laundrette. I mean, I did a whole set related to like my son going through bus stations and stuff, just like with very, very high intensity. So that's kind of I mean, I don't do it I'm still learning the ropes. But that's sort of the kind of high energy storytelling that I aspire to.
Have you seen Sam perform, Junior?
I have. I was just about to say that. You just kind of described yourself very well in terms of, I think if anyone asked me, that's what I'd probably say. Quite high intensity. But I can see the improv side of it as well. But yeah, definitely a lot of energy. Good use of props, especially with the Google Glass on. So yeah, I think.
I'm trying to make up for the lack of funny. Sorry, that's so nice of you to say. It's like all this hard work that I'm doing to make up for the lack of comedy. We saw it as a monkey business. It was. Yeah, that's supposed to.
I've always felt with Sam that it's like it's almost like you could just see so much waiting to just burst out. Do you know what I mean? It's always like he has to sort of play within himself a bit because it could. But when it does, and it probably has already. I mean, I know Sam's done 50 gigs now.
It is, yeah. I'm over 50. I'm kind of. It's interesting to hear Junior, you saying you're up to a year. I'm kind of 6 months in myself now, and it's I mean, I'm just addicted. It's I can't stop myself.
Yeah, you've got a world tour.
I'm going international, baby. Yeah.
Japan, was it?
I've got a Tokyo Comedy Bar booked for the end of the month. And
how's that? I've got a question about that. How's that going to go down? Are you going to do it in Japanese?
Well, I do speak Japanese, but I don't. I think there'll probably be quite a lot of expats, and there'll be some.
Okay.
I'm going to have to. I've got like two. I've got a open spot, and then I've got a show. So, I'll probably prepare like double the material, half of it in Japanese, and see what I can get away with, and just be very energetic.
Dazzle them with the hands.
Imagine you just take Tokyo by storm. Imagine you just become like just some like sort of mad cult hero in like Japan. It's just like world domination.
You'd have to move there permanently.
Well, I mean, we do want to get. I mean, my partner's Japanese, and we would love to get a house there, but yeah. No, I feel like, it's a nice thing to do. The interesting, there's various people who've come over who've done stuff like in Vietnam or China, what have you. But even having done quite well over there doesn't translate necessarily into success, in the English speaking world. I don't know if you've seen any of there's a few folks that we had Craig Craw on the show before, if you remember the show. I don't know. I mean, how are you finding it, Junior, with the the scene, as it were, and like the jostling of all the comedians and so
on? I always find it quite interesting. I mean, because you have so many different styles, especially just like on open nights, or if you're doing like a Friday, Saturday, whatever. There's just so many different styles and different approaches that people have, and it's just kind of absorbing it. Sometimes I sit down and I listen to some comedians and they tell us, I'm like, wow, I didn't even think of telling a story like that, or using those kind of motifs, or using certain characteristics. And you kind of listen to that and go, okay, well, is there any way that I can kind of use that and not obviously take the material or anything like that, but certain styles that they may use, or certain styles that they may build up and start a joke. Simple things, even like I was saying with props. I think I was doing a setting, these guys always playing ukuleles and harmonicas and stuff like that. And I just thought of witty ways that, I could bring someone on set. I could bring one of those on set, try and play it, not play it. And people think, well, hang on, I didn't see that. And just silly things like that you may bring into your set without kind of diluting what, who you are, or what your sets are like, right? So yeah, I find it, I probably learn a fair bit, but I mean, I go to more gigs and I watch probably stand-up on Netflix or anything like that. I probably learn a lot more just going to gigs, even when gigs I'm not performing, just going there and listening to certain artists and acts, and just kind of absorbing it. So yeah, like I said, because it's such a wide range, it's really good. So unfortunately, sometimes you go and someone's just there for a therapy session, you just kind of got to sit there and support them as much as you can. But yeah, overall, I do find it. I find it like learning, really, as opposed to just going there and doing my bit.
Have you performed abroad? Are you based in London?
I am, yeah.
So have you performed out of town, or has it been mostly London gigs you've done?
Mainly London. I think the first that I did was one in Orpington, which was all right. It was all right, but yeah, I think that, because I speak to a couple of my friends who are comedians, right? And I'm always like, oh, I wonder if this would work in Aldershot or Newcastle. And yeah, I'm always like, well, go and try it, right? Like literally go out there and get yourself on a train or whatever, and try and do the gig there. So that, I think that's probably where I need to go and start, expanding and making sure that what I am saying is resonate with people from all over.
Yeah, I'd be frightened in some. I mean, because I used to live down sort of that sort of southeast London, Kent way, right? So
yeah,
like
yeah,
the Heath way. And
all right, yeah, not too far, yeah.
That's like probably. I think I'd find that scary. I think I'd rather do it back in my hometown of Edinburgh, like Leith. Probably, I'd find that easier. But because when I lived down in Bexley Heath, everyone was hilarious.
Yeah,
The pub sounded like it was just this like constant laughter. And apparently there's a night down in Welling. I don't know. Are you that sort of area?
Yeah. I'm Greenwich, Bexley, right?
Yeah, apparently there's one in Welling. There's a pub night. There's a guy that I'd done my last course with. I did the Jeff Innocent course. You heard of Jeff Innocent?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't done it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Innocent. He does a course down in Greenwich at the up the creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that one, and then we got a few of the people on a WhatsApp group, and he said there's a little scene going on in like Welling, which is like, I was like, I would need to really pluck up. I'd very good, I'd really have a proven set to actually go down there and try it, because it's like, I reckon it's a pretty harsh crowd if it's not going well.
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised. I did one note them, and they were kind of like baying for blood. So yeah, I did want to know them. Yeah, they're baying for blood out there. So yeah, I probably got an idea what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, when you say Elton, that was scary, probably more than Welling would. It's just,
yeah, for more reasons than one. Yeah.
That's probably the kind of the good testing ground, isn't it? It's probably like, if you can hack it there and sort of go back and take and do it, you probably can do it anywhere, I reckon.
I guess you feel more comfortable with what you've got and things. Like you said, if I survive there.
It's like boxers, isn't it? Like, if they train in like some Philadelphia or something. I mean, they go and train in Detroit, and it's the roughest, toughest place, and then it sets them up. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing you kind of learn by adaptation. So you say you DJ as well. What sort of stuff you do? So I'm just interested in that part. You DJing, and what sort of music? What sort of stuff?
Yeah, so it's primarily like deep house, disco house, that kind of like house music, that kind of style. So I've been doing that for a while now, about 2015-ish, around then, and I've just always loved music. I mean, I'm sure everyone does, but I've just always enjoyed playing like deep house, disco house, just because of the flow and the melody. It just has always worked for me. I mean, I'd say that alongside like, more urban and hip hop music is what I listen to. But when it comes to like mixing, like I really love like mixing. I mean,
I'm down for a set, because that's the music that I sort of was really into when I started going out clubbing in the sort of late 80s, 90s, early 90s, was like Tony Humphries at the Ministry, and like, the sort of American sort of, Chicago. And
Chicago's. Yeah.
That sort of style. That was always my thing. So yeah, I'll be bang up for listening to a set. Sorry, I digress. Yeah. But yeah, sort of the club thing kind of is a sort of loose segue into some of the stuff that I like to talk about on these sessions, which is some of the stuff that I do, and some of my sets are based around it as well. Is I'm an advocate for a veterans charity. Veterans, as in people fought, army veterans, service veterans.
Yeah.
Suffer from like sort of PTSD post service, because it's a thing. And one of the ways in which veterans have found some sort of healing and sort of escape from those conditions is through working with plant medicines, right?
Okay.
And by plant medicines, I mean some of the kind of indigenous practices of, say, the Amazon or Africa, or kind of maybe kind of closer to home in terms of kind of we may have a tradition of working with, say, psilocybin mushrooms for spiritual purposes, but specifically so far the work has been with ayahuasca. I don't know if you've heard of ayahuasca, which is a sort of it's a sacred plant medicine sort of spiritual sacrament. from the Amazon. And Simon Amstell talks a lot about it in his sets, because he's experienced it. He's obviously, he's gone public with his discussions around his own, sort of mental health struggles. And ayahuasca is something that he kind of references very positively. So I talk about, plant medicines and sort of sacred plant stuff in my sets. What's your kind of awareness levels of that kind of stuff, if anything?
Well, no, not highly. I didn't know they were using those kind of techniques to help, veterans suffering with PTSD. I had no idea. To be honest, I thought you were going to go down the route of they come to gigs and everyone cheers them up. But it sounds even more beneficial, because they're actually using something that's actually giving them probably long lasting relief from what they're struggling with. But I don't really know much about those practices. Yeah,
so it's the charity is called Heroic Hearts Project. Okay, it's an offshoot of an American charity of the same name, and there's a sort of recognition that service people coming back, really struggling, kind of reintegrating into kind of day-to-day life, talk about bravery and kind of prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice and all the rest of it. I mean, just incredible stories and harrowing tales of things happening out there in somewhere like Iraq or Afghanistan. So friend of mine, a guy called Keith Abraham, was in that situation, and we've chatted about it publicly, so it's kind of I'm not betraying him here, but he ended up going to Peru with kind of severe PTSD, and then within 2 weeks of going to Peru, had fixed it through the use of this the sacred plant medicine. So it's two plants that are mixed together into like a tea. Right. It's not very nice. It's quite bitter and it's quite harsh. But it's like a vine and a leaf that are mixed together, and it has certain potential kind of psychedelic visionary properties. But that's not the be all and end all of it. The healing is done at a kind of not necessarily through the kind of psychedelic part. There's much more mysterious things going on with the actual plants, but that's why we need to get more research on it. The problem is here it kind of falls under our sort of it's kind of in the banned substances. So we're working really hard to get the law changed, to raise awareness, and that's part of the reason for doing this kind of stuff, and part of the reason that I started doing comedy was to try and raise awareness for this, because it's something that's really important to me, that people kind of start to understand that there are potential solutions to mental and physical health ailments which might sit outside of the traditional realms. Mm-hmm. And I'm particularly interested in an African plant called Iboga, because I've got African family. My granddad was Nigerian, but I've got connections in Africa, and so I don't look like I have, but I do. Yeah. And so I'm really interested in that, to sort of maybe try and revive some of those, kind of traditional, sort of approaches to, spirituality and healing and kind of mental health, which is I don't know how long-winded or whatever that sounds like, but yeah, so I'm interested in just to kind of test the general awareness of these things.
And as we always say at this time, don't we, Joe, is that these are potentially complicated, risky psychoactive substances, and so the people using these are doing it under careful supervision. And to any of the listeners, don't think, oh right, I'm feeling a bit down, I'll magically fix it with mushrooms. It's I think it's all about getting proper scientific research done, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, so it's so. First of all, not advocating anyone do anything illegal, risky. Secondly, it's not for everybody. It can be quite a dangerous thing if for example you have a history of mental illness, or you're taking some antidepressants, or for whatever reason. So you have to be thoroughly vetted by a responsible practitioner. And do your research, do it with a place you trust. And I'm working with a group where we're kind of promoting trusted retreats, places that we've either been ourselves or know people, who are kind of, absolutely, we absolutely trust, and who've got, all the best safety protocols and all the best screening practices and all the best aftercare, because you can't just have people kind of like, going into kind of potentially a kind of difficult situation and being left on their own. It's not there. But yeah, it's something that it's part of my life. You know, I mean, it's something that I'll be kind of working with because it's something I sincerely believe in. I've thought about it a lot. But there's a lot of people who are kind of struggling with kind of mental. I mean, we talk. You know, you just have to turn the TV on, listen to any radio show, newspaper, online, whatever. Mental health crisis everywhere. You know, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
But not many people are coming up with any kind of new solutions. Apparently, the numbers of people who've gone on to antidepressants in the last couple of years as a result of kind of pandemic-related stress is unbelievable. I heard the stats the other day. It's something like 1 in 8 people.
Wow.
It's like incredible. It's incredible numbers of people that are like, have got to the point where they need some sort of help to keep that kind of mental state kind of stable. So that's kind of my reason for being sort of in it. And obviously, hanging out with comedians as well, all the it's a great way to kind of, I don't know, start to understand a bit more about, the human capacity for kind of mental kind of, not illness as such, but it's a sort of a way for comedians that I guess it's like that living on the edge all the time. It's like, it's a unique position, I think.
Yeah, well, then they're also using, and of course, there's like the NHS is now providing stand-up courses as part of like a mental health package.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's I think it's a really, like we often joke about the mental state of the people on the open mic circuit, ourselves included, but I think there's definitely something there, isn't there, in that space of creativity and trying to express yourself and frustrations of modern life and so on.
Did you hear Jimmy Carr on the Comedian's Comedian?
No, go on.
So the Comedian's Comedian podcast, right?
I know Stuart Goldsmith's. Yeah, I'm busy working my way through from episode 1, so I'm not up to the latest one. But yeah, go on, Joe. What's going on with this one?
Jimmy Carr said to him, like, can you interview me? I think it might have been before gigs or after gigs, and it was a sort of like kind of Jimmy Carr starts to kind of bear all of it. But I think he'd written an autobiography, which was kind of like a bit of a self-help book. I haven't read it, but I mean, listening to the interviews, it's more about kind of like his thought processes, his challenges, the kind of catharsis of performance, the inability to live a kind of the career path that he was on, which he wasn't really happy with, but to be honest and be authentic and stuff like that. And it's really, really fascinating stuff. And I think there is an element of that with comedy. I'm not sure if that's any reason why you guys are doing it, but I suppose,
well, I guess, yeah, Junior, because obviously you've got you've got many strings in your bow, you've got the music and so on. Do you want the comedy to become the main thing? Where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, I think as I've been slowly doing it, over the past couple months, weeks, whatever it is, I've slowly, began to feel like, yeah, this is definitely something that I really want to pursue going long term. I think it's then going, all right, cool. How much what am I doing to put myself in that position where I can see the light at the end of the tunnel and whatnot? And the one thing I do also really love about comedy is because it's just so subjective. And there's so many different competitions or whatnot. It's quite easy once you found a bit of your rhythm, right, to really kick on in this space. And I think that's one of the wonderful things. I think there are some areas where you probably need a bit of a leg up. I'm not saying you don't need a leg up in comedy. Everyone does. But I think there's such a clear root of meritocracy in doing stand-up that, there is more reason for, if you're really good, then there's no reason why you shouldn't, kick on and be someone. Yeah, exactly. Rise your way to the top, because it's kind of really in your hands in that respect, because you can get a gig like that and, just keep practicing, keep working. Sometimes it's a bit more complicated in other industries, other creative industries. I think if you're trying to be a film director or write scripts and stuff like that, there are so many barriers you have to cross before you can put your show on stage or anything like that. Or if you're trying to get music gigs and stuff like that, in my world, sometimes it's promoters who run certain nightclubs. They're trying to make a certain return on a night, so you may not be able to run your nights there. You might establish crew and stuff like that. So there are a couple more barriers that I think stand-up doesn't naturally have. You can just go, hey, is there a gig on tonight? Yeah, sure, I'll come down to Hammersmith, blah, blah, blah. Cool. There you go. You can then practice your 15 or 5 or whatever it is and get going. And so I think doing that along with just the natural, like I was saying earlier, the kind of fascination I had with it from a really young age, you know, switching on Comedy Central at 11, and I shouldn't really watch anything, and seeing comedians on stage and just seeing how they carry themselves, tell the jokes, and just kind of deliver their story. That's always just been a fascination for me. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'd always pursue at this point.
Have you got any kind of shout outs you want to give to any kind of particular places? I mean, where have you really felt like, oh, I really like this room, I really like this place, these are good, you know, this is a good place, these are good guys?
I think I've always enjoyed Jester Jesters. So it's always been like a little stomping ground where I want to try new stuff. It's always been a good time there. Where else have I always really enjoyed? There's a kind of this new night going on at Crouch End. Ashley's running it. Kiss the Sky Comedy. That's really welcoming. That's a really great place to start. For anyone who's trying to go out there and really kind of build their platform. It's a bringer, yeah. But there's people there who are generally interested in comedy, and I think that's the most important thing. It's always nice to be in a room where you know people are there for the comedy. The gig I was talking about Eltham as well. I'm not saying that was one of the best nights, but you go there and, you know, sometimes, you know, the crowd isn't just there primarily for the stand-up, and that kind of takes away from the night you're trying to have sometimes. And Comedy Cabin as well. That's one place I really enjoy doing gigs as well. So there's a few others in Hammersmith, but I won't go through to everyone. But yeah. There's a few places I really enjoy.
Yeah, and of course you got your own podcast as well. You should know better. You've been doing with the very funny Michael.
Yeah, Michael doing Michael Theory. Yeah, so that's been going good. Again, for those that don't know, we get guests on primarily. I'd say usually comedians, because that's who we know. But you know, people from all walks of life to come on and discuss a time when they should have known better. And we just kind of unpack it in like 10, 15 minutes. So, you know, a silly holiday trip or something they didn't tell their parents and stuff like that. And then we kind of go on to discuss like some current affairs of the day and try and put a spin on it as well. Try and look at it from the antagonist shoes and try and let them defend themselves as best they can. But yeah, that's been going quite well.
What's it called?
It's called You Should Know Better. So it's kind of a play. Instead of you should know, it's you should know. So it's SHOE. So it's kind of putting yourselves in the shoes of someone else in the news story of the day, and just trying to poke a few holes and laughs in their stories.
Maybe I'll listen.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I very much.
We had Sam on. Yeah, we had Sam. We had a great. Sam is one of the greatest episodes of the series. I think it's your energy. It's when you start telling the story and then you go, oh, wait, let me wind this back actually, because I don't want to get myself in trouble. And yeah, that was. I won't forget that. I won't forget that episode.
Well, yeah. You put together some good graphics as well. It really illustrated the story.
Yeah. You tried to get your Native American side out.
Okay. Yeah, but so just onto one of my questions is you're like clearly very technologically plugged in, the podcasting, and you're mixing all the stuff up there and so on. And I guess technology has like changed everything. I don't know. I think you're probably slightly younger than the two of us, so maybe you're taking it for granted. But is there, like, in terms of your comedy and like everything, is there technology that you're particularly looking to, and you're like, oh, I'm loving the way this works, you want to get more technology in there, or is it you're like, oh, there's too much, I want to get off into the fields and just do something in a cabin?
No, it's quite. It is quite interesting because you bring that up, because I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but my day to day is in technology. I work in financial technology, right?
Oh, really?
So I'm like a software test engineer and stuff like that. So I'm with technology every single waking day, right? I'm looking at it. I'm working on it. I'm always reading articles how to improve it in my day-to-day life. And I've never really thought about incorporating that side of it into my gigs. I don't know if it's because I do it I'm doing it every day. I feel like that is that day, that is Junior by day, and this is me by night.
Right.
But I've never really thought about this is more about what I do. So I've never really thought about what I do, which again encompasses technology, into one of my gigs. There is one guy, I don't know her name, but I've seen her on the circuit, and she works in a similar field. And she does, her main set is about her day-to-day work, and obviously being a woman in tech and how difficult that can be.
Sophie Wilson, I think.
It is, yeah. I know well. Yeah. And so I like her take on that. I really enjoy it, because she does encompass her work, and then also the twist of struggling today's day in a kind of male-dominated industry. But again, I just think that's never been anything that I want. Maybe down the line I will. I don't know. but I feel like I don't tell that many jokes about that naturally. So then again, why would I then start writing jokes about that? But one day I may just draw on it. I don't know. Maybe because I'm not at a point where I can, effectively extract the mundane bits of my daily life and make it into a hilarious set. I don't know. But I don't think that's exactly what you're asking me. You're talking more about using different forms of technology in your set. So I'll touch upon that.
But that's still a very interesting answer to the first one. But go on. Yeah, there's the sides.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. So yeah, I've never really thought about using it until I saw what you were doing. I'm not saying I would do that, but when you came with the Google Glass, I was like, wow, this is new, this is inventive. This is a different style of comedy that I haven't used, because you can actually see what we're seeing. I think the only other aspects I would really use it is, naturally just recording my sets. Either using the voice recorder or using using your phone as a camera, tripod, recording sets, and that's more for learning and practical purposes than anything. There obviously are comedians. I've got his name now. Pete Wills down at Comedy Cabin. He uses technology quite profusely in his sets because he has the projector. Yeah, he has. So I don't want to spoil his thunder. People should go and see him and stuff. But he uses a projector to help relay his jokes, and it's really effective and definitely works for him. And so those are different aspects where I think people can definitely benefit from using technology in their sets. I think predominantly I'd rather keep it as simplistic as possible, just because I don't know how, especially using a lot of technology in terms of actual physical products. You probably know more than me, but I don't know the logistics of that sometimes. I got with Pete,
more things to go wrong.
I just like with Pete. I mean, if he's doing a gig, they don't have the projector working. I don't know what happens, because that's half it gone. So yeah, I don't know. There's aspects of it I definitely enjoy. I don't think there's anything that stands out to me right now that I go, right, I really want to incorporate that into my sets.
Well, that's interesting. There's so many you've helped expand my mind there of the different ways to interpret that. I mean, and I've started to move away from technology. I'm also in a tech day job, and I love the pure creativity of the the comedy thing. It's just the contrast is wonderful. But it's interesting speaking to we had Wes Defoe on, and he does a lot of stuff on TikTok. And this is another, like, he does this, I think it's like American comedians. He's got like a reel of like 8 different TikToks. And like, he was just telling me how he set up and he did like, just videoing himself riffing on different kinds of American comedian tropes and then splitting it up into, so he's getting a lot of follows and building. I mean, there's that sort of the other side of it, independently of whether you put technology into your act, which is we just were talking about, but there's also like using technology to promote your act and to get your face out there, which is, it's kind of weird because, in some ways, I want that visceral, the people laughing in the same room as me, people laughing about, around the country on their mobile phones. It's not quite as exciting. Although if that then turns into like, oh, well, these 100,000 people know you and then you can book great gigs. It's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has that appeal to it. So to be honest, I didn't actually think of it when I think technology. I think the pure basis of technology, just because of the background. I think that. I was thinking, I don't know how you want me to incorporate JavaScript into my gig, but somehow I will do it. I will get it done. but yeah, no, using social media, definitely. I think you know what? During the pandemic, when I was thinking about getting into comedy, that's what I started doing. I started using social media, making small videos here and there, and I think that's definitely something. I think more so in this modern age with younger comedians and other ones as well, if you're inclined to do that as well, is to engage with people around the world who have no idea who you are, but that might generate clicks, like you said, because they may see your stuff and go, wow, this guy's, ripping it up on TikTok. I'm sure his gigs are probably just as good. I'm going to go and see him if he's around. So yeah, there definitely is that aspect of it.
Yeah. Who was that Liverpool comedian, the sort of red-haired guy?
He was also on Comedians, wasn't he?
He was a lot of short clips, and they just were getting so many views, tons and tons of views. It was almost like he kind of fast-tracked himself, kind of way ahead of kind of where he would have maybe been if he'd just done the kind of up and down the country, playing, kind of old school, kind of on the road. That ability to kind of connect through that short form. I mean, isn't art? I mean, just putting together social media clips is that work is an art form for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's something.
Go on.
I don't know if it's something you can learn. I mean, it's a bit like comedy. Do you think it's something you can learn, or do you think it's something you? Do you know what I mean? Like, what percentage kind of inspiration versus just natural? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think some of it can be learned, because I genuinely believe there is a framework. So I've got ideas for like all those really silly videos. I used to do them before. It's back on the actual comedy scene, so it kind of just falls by the wayside. But I think there is like a formula or a template that certain people do use, and you can probably see it in a lot of the videos. About the spark, the actual idea for the video, so that stuff I don't think you can learn. That just naturally has to come in from you. I mean, you need to be able to see something that sometimes I watch the videos and I resonate with that, but I would have never thought to do a video about that. That was so funny, but I would have never put two and two together. And I think that side of it, you really need to sit down and go, right, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? And I think not everyone may have that, but in terms of like the template and how to get the videos out, I think most people can adopt that. It's just, the actual bread and butter of how to take like so I guess some of them are like you said, people are probably making jokes about certain people are already. So I remember when Donald Trump was in power, people used to do voiceovers of Donald Trump speaking, and they were just naturally hilarious. But you don't really have to do too much. You're kind of riding off what Donald Trump is doing and making it funny. It's funny in its own right, and whoever comes up with the idea, credit to you, because I find those funny. Whereas the other aspect is some of the videos where people are doing daily stuff and they make a funny out of that, and that stuff. I think you need to kind of have a bit of those inspirational juices, because I can't always see those. Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes I just, got a few projects going on in other areas as well, part as well as my day job. I've got a not-for-profit up in Scotland where we're building skate ramps. Getting young unemployed people to kind of help build the ramp. We've got a contractor in who gives them kind of training, and it gives them sort of pre-apprenticeship type training and some sort of official training course sort of certificates to help them get jobs down the line, right? So that's the kind of the model of it. And just watching the people make these videos of it, it's just like so good. Like say that voiceovers, like adding in like, kind of like some sort of like German techno music with sort of stuff over. Yeah.
Done that, I mean, because anytime I've tried to do like videos, it's like, cuts off a bit too early, doesn't quite fit. I mean, it's like maybe it's just sort of, you've just got an eye for it, but like maybe painting, maybe like any art form, you just have to have a thing. You do any 5-minute shorts, Sam? Have you thought about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is it. So I've also looked up, because it's bothered me. Paul Smith is the Liverpudlian guy who's got all these YouTube uploads, and I think this is an interesting thing. Is that I don't think. Well, I think if I'm right, the videos that it's not like Wes is doing like making content specifically for upload. It's just him. It's like little clips of his material that he's doing a lot of emceeing, he's doing crowd work, and there's like little clips of that, and it's all going up. And I do see, of our contemporaries, Junior, like quite a lot of people will take, like a single joke, and they'll make a video and they'll put, like captions on it with like nice bold things telling the joke, and you'll see that on the Instagram feed, right, and occasionally on Facebook. So people are sort of doing that. I mean, I've been turning a lot of material. I've got like a couple of hours worth of comedy I've all unlisted on YouTube, but I'm in this kind of weird, sort of like when I first started, I was like, I didn't think, am I going to be able to generate that much material? So I was kind of I'm not going to keep this safe. I don't want to burn my magic first 5 or what have you. Whereas looking back at it now, I mean, actually, I guess I could have just been knocking it out there. But now, like I'm so much more excited about generating new sets than I am about going back through the old sets and editing them to kind of find individual pieces to put up online. I don't know. Maybe I should be doing that. I mean, are you doing that with any of the? Do you video yourself occasionally?
Yeah. So I was having a discussion with this about this actually with another comedian, some a bit more experienced, and he was kind of the view of that he regretted putting some of his older stuff on.
Oh, really?
I think just from the aspect that because he's got to a point where he's improved the set so much now.
Yeah.
He feels like that doesn't probably depict the best version of him. And so he kind of regrets putting up some old material. Because I was on the notion of, again, the same as you. I was like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to have enough. I don't want to go and burn 30 seconds, some of the best 30 seconds, and stick. Not that anyone's going to find it anyway. Not that anyone's going to be like, hey, you said that before. We've seen you. No, I doubt that's ever going to happen. But, you never know. You just never know, right? But I was of that mindset. And he was kind of like, well, you can, obviously. But this is my take. And I was like, you know what? That is fair enough. Because I could see that happening in the future. Me probably wasn't too sure about dropping that there or dropping that there. But I mean, sometimes I go, actually, I do want to kind of put that up and see, how people find those jokes. And, you never know, that might generate people going, oh, I've seen him before or something like that. Let me go and watch him over here. So I think it's, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. But just going off the comment that the comedian gave me, I thought, it's worth listening to because ultimately I may feel the same way.
It's an interesting one. Go on, Joe.
It might be this, people are doing how these comedy courses, right? It might be that people start doing a course for, once you've done the comedy bit, here's how you do promo. Here's how you use. Here's some kind of say basic templates you can use to get your material out there, to get yourself known, to kind of get to the right places. That could be something.
I think that there may even be something like, although, do you want to hear my latest promo whiz thing that I'm doing?
Go for
Definitely.
it.
So I don't know if you can see this on the camera.
Yes.
So this is with a bit, you'll recognize, of course, as a technologist, this is a QR code
that
links to my website. So this is a special, I tell people, I come bundled with a free drink deal when you see me perform. So I hand these out at gigs and basically I say, if you follow me on Instagram, and you see my full set, then I will buy you a drink. And I have been doing this, I've been saying it, and then I've had these cards made up, and I've been doing it for a couple of weeks. And it's interesting, obviously I'm out of pocket for quite a few drinks, but I've got another 50 Instagram followers. And so what was it? I was in Brixton at the Hope and Anchor, Michael Frankland's gig about 2 weeks back, handing them out to people in the, whatever. And one guy came up to me and said, oh, I'm sorry, mate, we couldn't come up, but I've seen you're on in Tooting. We'll come and see you next week.
Brilliant.
And he brought his sister and his friends, and they all came to my gig in Tooting the following Monday. So I'm building an audience.
That is ingenious. That is something I think only Sam you could come up with. Putting a QR code on a card and offering a free drink, and I mean, look, the proof's in the pudding, right? Yeah, the guy coming to, so
I mean, the real proof will be is if they now come to a second one, because that was the first time they saw me. I mean, this is of course, if I'm not able to engage them, but this is I'm starting to have this crazy idea because other people about putting gigs on is next year. So I was I've been doing some emceeing at Comedy Rumblings, which is Michael Cleary's thing. Actually, there was is it Carmen Ali was there, and she's got actually also a QR code. This is for her, I think our show that she's doing, and she was saying she's got some little venue with 30 seats, and she's meant to sell 23 tickets. And I'm thinking, so my first objective is get 100 gigs under my belt. I think next year, put on an hour show and in just some small venue, and if I can have built enough. I'd basically offer everybody free drinks. This is the advantage of working in tech, is that I've been unlike a struggling artist, I've got a bit of money, and it's fuck it, I just want to. I don't know about if you have this. I get a bit jealous of other people, my audience is laughing at other people. I want an audience just for me. Do you know what I mean? This is the attraction of an hour show. I get these lovely people all to myself.
Yeah.
And then after I've done my 5 sets, why are you laughing at this guy? You're laughing at me. Stay with me.
Yeah, I think every comic has that in their emotional arsenal. Yeah, you always want them to just solely laugh for you. Yeah, I know how that feels. But that's it. No, go on, Joe.
So when the person before absolutely kills it, and you're like, fuck. In my limited experience, that's the freaky one. Do you know what I mean? After I'm fine, but just the guy before, if he's brought the house down, that's tough.
Yeah, it's a tough one to follow. I think that is also a hallmark of a good MC. I think when the guy before you has not done as well, you need him to kind of bring up the energy. So then everyone's kind of riled up and they're ready to go. But or conversely, if the guy was really, really good, you kind of need him to bring it down a notch.
Bring it down a bit.
You got to bring it down. Yeah, you got to be able to bring it down as well. And I think that's the hard part.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, no, well, I've definitely done a bit of that with some of my emceeing. It's like, look, I'm here to not be funny so that you'll laugh more at this next guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're having a good chat with I don't know how much more time you've got. I think we're getting this time. Just to follow up on a couple other questions that we often ask. Like, I'll say, like, are you a spiritual man, Junior? Is there a spiritual side to you, or is it just like cold, clear JavaScript all the way down?
No, I'm not just a program. I'm a bit more than that. No, I would say I'm fairly spiritual. I grew up Christian, Catholic. I often say I'm more of a lapsed Catholic now. The traditions of being Catholic, they stick with me day in, day out. But I wouldn't say I'm a active churchgoer. But aside from that, yeah, I'm very spiritual. I think even if I wasn't on that side, I think there's just naturally an essence that I have with the world and the universe and all of that entails, because I just think there's more to this, right? That's the way I always see things.
Yeah, I'm Catholic as well, and there's an interesting sort of school of thought which is it's been written about quite reasonably extensively now, and it's gaining, not I say gaining traction, definitely not. Stay with it, but the actual original spiritual practice, original church religion, Jesus, worshipping was actually a kind of a psilocybin mushroom or some sort of sacred plant ceremony. And then down the years, we've kept the kind of the spiritual thing and the the interaction with gods and whatnot, but we've been the plant bit.
Yeah. You got really actual bit, yeah.
Yeah, bend the good bit and just kept to bend the practice and kept the theory.
Yeah, just kept the rules.
Yeah, so this, I mean, it's quite interesting. Like in my kind of travels in sort of plant medicines around the world. In Peru, I've spent a bit of time in Peru and worked with people from Brazil and other places. And when I go into churches now, I see like the imagery and some of the stuff, and I'm like, there's definitely some sort of psychedelic kind of input into this. Do you know what I mean? The nature of the places, the spaces, the lights, the decorations, the stained glass, the kind of the motifs. I just think God is, and maybe I would say that because I've had the experiences, you know what I mean? But it's like, there's definitely something in it. I mean, as I say, come back to the kind of plant medicine thing, there's a kind of healing element to it, on a practical level. They're doing a lot of brain imaging now. You've heard of that, the default mode network, that thing that creates anxiety, that thing that's always taking over, going like, have I done this? Should I have done that? Was I funny last night? Will I be funny tomorrow? Do you know what I mean? Oh, it'll be shit. You know what I mean? That thing.
Yeah.
The default mode network, I think they call it. They've done some brain scans on people who are kind of had, under the influence of, say, some sort of plants or synthetic psilocybin, which is the compound the active compound in magic mushrooms. And they basically, all that part of the brain just goes flat. It's normally kind of like undulating, but under kind of a brain image sort of scan and a visualization of it, that bit completely flat. And that's what happens in those experiences. Like, all that stuff, the ruminations, the questioning, the kind of, oh shit, it just goes away. And it's kind of turned off just for that, hour, 2 hours, whatever, however long it's happening for. And then other parts of the brain start activating parts of the brain, which are kind of, I don't know what they're called, but, you're kind of, your pineal gland, the kind of seat of the seat of the soul, your kind of third eye, that stuff, that starts to kind of open up and connections are made, and people talk quite openly about these, mystical experiences. And one of the key determinants of success of those kind of treatments is having a mystical experience. And, I think I've had one. If you think you've had one, you probably have, right?
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is, I think also they get some similar results for people who do, are trained meditators. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm on this silent meditation retreat this week, 9 to 5. And I'd say actually that the experience is really quite intense and quite similar to mushrooms, actually, I would say.
Yeah. The interesting part of that is we create DMT, dimethyltryptamine, in our own brain. hallucinogen, almost, you know, is actually created inside of ourselves. Yeah. So people that go into dark, people that meditate a lot, can activate, you know, that, you know, yoga, I think, breathing exercises. So there are multiple kind of ways you can access this outside of plants. I think that's what be made clear is like, you know, what you're doing with Vipassana, meditation, you know, as I say, breathing, all those other practices, ancient spiritual practices, are kind of designed to kind of maybe activate that gland, which creates the DMT, and can create all kind of visionary states without even touching.
It's much cheaper than, you know, buying drugs. Really, it seems great if I could have my own little drug factory going on in my brain.
Well, that's what Wim Hof talks about. Wim Hof talks about getting high on your own supply through the breath work. And activating, you know, he does, you know, if I did one of his courses, and he does this thing which is like, he calls it the DMT breath. So it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of, you know, heavy, intense breathing, and kind of and trying to activate that, where, you know, the gland that's kind of making it. And I think I've almost done it. I mean, not to the same extent as of you know, real ingestion.
Wim Hof he's the ice cold guy, right? He's also like the ice baths. Yeah, and you know, and he's a big, but the breath work for him is one of the key things. There's a program on BBC about it recently, where a few celebrities went in. Gabby Logan had a breakthrough on breath work, like, you know, started to interact with her kind of, you know, long trauma created by the death of her brother when he was young. She, through 3 sessions of breath work, started to connect with that. It's all on BBC. You can find it. It's not just, you know, it's not just wacky stuff now. It's like it's coming into the mainstream. Well, maybe we could sort of move towards radio. But Junior, I mean, you know, we're going off on our Vipassana and plant medicine, or whatever. Does that connect with anything for you? Is that all these like crazy old white guys just going?
Well, no, I think I've always found the history of all of this quite interesting. I mean, you look back at the history of not exactly related to this, but some of the clinical trials that they were doing in the States with some other psychoactive drugs like LSD and stuff like that, just seeing how they were doing initial research. And what I always found interesting was the way that people were quite quick to shut it down, and what that kind of meant for the development of some of these plant-based medical solutions. Because what I kind of wanted to ask you, Joe, was, I know you mentioned that they're trying to do clinical trials here, or trying to probably push to change the laws here. I think how much of that is being hampered because of more of the kind of hearsay about, well, we don't know what they do, and so we're not really sure. Because I think if you look back, I've always, when I was, you know, I studied history, and I always just found all of that history just always encompassing everything that's happening right now. And I think what's interesting is when missionaries anyway were going across to the Americas or to Africa, they were quite quick to shut down any local traditional practices that some of these local communities use to help benefit themselves medically. And I think that kind of taboo is still really present in the medical industry today. And I just think how much effort is needed to kind of break down those barriers, because again, I think just recently, I'd say you'd say medicines from the Far East now are slowly coming into the mainstream. And I think that's because of people have seen the benefit of that. And I think probably medicines from the Americas and Africas are probably still in the dark right now. So I just wonder how much work is needed to kind of bring that forward.
Interesting point, because there's a thing on a film on Netflix which has literally been released in the last week or so called How to Change Your Mind. Okay. There was a book written recently by a well-known, I mean, I didn't know of him, but he is well known in his own field. Like he's an American writer who decided he would do. He was getting older, felt like he didn't have much to lose from a credibility, kind of career point of view. So he went kind of underground and basically sampled all of the kind of psychedelics that he could, be on the underground or be on the overground or whatever. And he wrote a book about it called How to Change Your Mind. And they've just literally done a film of it, which goes back through all the trials that were done in the 60s, MK Ultra, those sort of experiments. And then how it all kind of went a bit pear-shaped, and it became, and they shut it down. Mm. And all the promise and all the promising research that had been done up to a given point in time just got squashed. It's got shelved, and now it's starting to be kind of dusted off and looked at again. And big prestigious institutions at the moment, Imperial College are doing clinical trials. King's College are doing clinical trials. There's a lot of, Johns Hopkins in the States. So big prestigious research institutions are doing clinical trials on this stuff. But what makes it very difficult is because of the scheduling. So there's classification in the scheduling. So you can have class A, which is like your kind of coke, your crystal meth, whatever, and you can have schedule 1. So schedule 1 means it's got absolutely no medical benefit, right? So be sort of class A and schedule 1. So the issue around doing research on things is the scheduling, right? So schedule 1 means that psilocybin, for example, has got, practically no benefit at all. So to be able to do research on it costs a lot of money in permits, costs a lot of money in, kind of infrastructure around the thing, about regulations around it. So what we're trying to do is get it rescheduled, not reclassified on the street level, but get it scheduled at the kind of for the experimental level, so we can actually do more research on it and get more data. And that's very nearly going to happen. It's kind of sitting in government at the minute. A question was asked in the House of Commons by an MP, a Tory MP called Crispin Blunt, who asked the question of Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson actually answered the question and said, "Oh yeah, we're looking at it." So it's kind of sitting in government. It's quite weird. It's actually kind of sitting there. It just takes someone just to go, "Yeah, well, we're going to reschedule psilocybin in this case because for further research." So it's so near to kind of happening. It just needs that sort of one person in government to say, actually, this is worth looking at.
Yeah,
there's a real potential benefit. Very tightly controlled clinical trials. Very, very, low risk profile for them. People are very well vetted, clinical conditions, dose very, very kind of closely monitored, etc. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're really, really close. And there's been a massive kind of uptick in interest in the traditional American, in the North and South America, like say Africa, and I guess all over Asia, that there's going to be instances of these kind of plants as well. So there's a kind of a whole kind of traveling crew of people who are kind of going and doing these things in situ. Going to Peru, going to Brazil, going to Ecuador, maybe Colombia, to experience these things, coming back going, like Simon Amstell did, going, shit, it's just changed my life.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the thing that people might ask, Joe, is like in the UK, if they want to help with the scheduling thing, what should they be doing? Should they be writing to their MP?
Well, there is that. There's a we can put it in the show notes. There's a group called it's quite a mouthful. It's a conservative drug policy reform group, CDPRG. Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group. And they're promoting a campaign called Psilocybin Access Rights, on the principle that if someone's depressed, addicted, in many cases suicidal, addicted, suffering from, any one of these things that they're getting prescribed antidepressants for, they should have access to, another modality, in this case psilocybin, to say, well, let's give it a try, and it should, it's a natural product. It's not toxic. It's not addictive. It is potentially very difficult in the experience. So that's not to be kind of. It's not just a kind of quick fix. So again, back to your point, not recommended. Do your research. Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything dangerous. But there are competent people out there doing the research, and there are people. And there's a really interesting one. His head injuries. So you heard a lot about, concussive traumatic brain injury, early onset dementia. There's anecdotal evidence that these substances can actually start to reverse some of that stuff.
Right.
Well, I think you're making a convincing argument, Joe. I mean, but so again, like, I guess what can people do? If people are convinced by your arguments, what do they do? Is it writing the MP, and this website will put in for the CPRDG? They can basically. They can go to that site and they can make a donation and stuff. There's a
template to write to your MP, and so write to your MP, and that's what we can do. It's like putting pressure on, providing evidence. It's all you can do as a kind of advocate activist, I guess. And it's just about keeping going.
Rock and roll. Well, we are, I think, running towards time, but I think we need to have Junior have the last word. Particularly, Junior, is anything else that you wanted to get on air? And of course, where can people see you in the near future and so on? Any final closing thoughts for us?
Well, I think it's all been really interesting and really enlightening. I've learned a lot from what Joe's doing. That definitely, I didn't know enough about that clearly because I didn't know there was so much work being done in that space, helping veterans. So that has definitely been a huge eye opener. There was also Sam. I'm really loving your use of the QR codes. That was definitely that is so you. That is just you. I think in a nutshell, really. So I'm not surprised there. Yeah. I think the only thing I would add is you can always catch me. I say probably the podcast first. As I said, you should know that's Shoe SHOE, no better. I think the tag is YSKB on Instagram and Twitter. You find the main pod there, and I'm also on there as well. I do need to change my Instagram handle because it's a bit siloed. It's dj.jace, but it doesn't encompass everything I do. So that needs to change. So just go to the podcast and you indirectly catch me there as well. But yeah, I think I've really enjoyed coming on and listening to all different aspects. And it's been fun. Been
great having you. Yeah, and we'll get links to all your stuff and up in the show notes, and any upcoming gigs will get people into your audience. Well, thanks everyone, and remember you can help support the show by going to patreon.com/comedianson, where any level of support will get you access to our Slack community, the text chat with us and the guests. High levels get you access to bonus features. I'll let you discover it all, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.